Hi, everyone. Good morning. This is Matt Gayer, Co-Executive Director of the Catalog for Philanthropy. We'll be talking about focused fundraising campaigns today, how to drive action during them. We still have quite a few folks hopping the line here, so we'll give everyone just one more minute, and then we'll get started. Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of y'all who just hopped on, my name is Matt Gayer, Co-Executive Director of the Catalog for Philanthropy. We're talking about focused fundraising campaigns today and how to drive action. A couple of things to note before we get started. You should be able to see our screen here, our audio right now. If you have issues with either of those, please let us know. If you have any questions throughout today, feel free to ask those at any time. We'll answer those questions as they come up or at the end of the webinar today. We will send out a copy of the slides and recording shortly afterwards. So we will send out a copy of the slides and recording shortly after the webinar today. I also apologize. They are doing some construction near our office today. So if you hear some background noise, that's what that's from. If it becomes too loud, please let me know in the chat and we'll try to adjust for that. So when thinking about fundraising campaigns and why this is such an important topic, we know our donors are in some ways more distracted than ever before, right? There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot of news to consume, a lot of social media that they're focused on, and they're tired, right? Just like probably a lot of us and a lot of our staff, they're burnt out. They have a lot going on personally and professionally. So keeping their attention and capturing their attention especially if they're a new donor that we're trying to get, is more of a challenge than it ever has been. And that's why fundraising campaigns can be so effective. These focus campaigns, sometimes as short as a day, sometimes as long as a year, depending on if we're doing a capital campaign or a short digital campaign, really can drive attention to something, right? Can drive some urgency to it. Most of the campaigns we'll be talking about today, the tips for it will really apply most to kind of social media or kind of social campaigns that are a little shorter, kind of anywhere from 1 day to a month. And we do encourage folks to really think about driving urgency throughout one of the tips we'll talk about today. So sometimes that can be helpful to do on a shorter time basis. So with that, we're going to go ahead and dive on in. We have 5 tips to share with y'all today about fundraising campaigns. So the first tip here, this is going to help us cut through the noise again, right, and make sure this campaign really shows up for folks that they're where it's happening. Is we need a strong theme and a strong goal, right? So just doing a campaign isn't enough usually to get people's attention. It needs to be a campaign people care about, and that's going to come down to the theme and goal that we set. So the first thing here is that we want to make sure that there's a layered goal here, that we have some type of dollar amount. So we do want people to know what we're working towards. But the communication should really focus on the impact, right? So yes, we're trying to raise $10,000, but really what we're trying to do is build a new playground for the kids, right? Buy a new truck for a river restoration, whatever it might be. So think about what is that dollar amount, but what's that related impact to that dollar amount? Secondly, we're thinking about how to make sure that goal and theme are really specific. We want to make sure, I apologize again for the background noise here. We're going to try to move this here for just a second. We want to make sure that the goal and theme are really specific and set explicitly, right? Really letting, apologize again for this, really letting folks know specifically kind of what that money and what that goal is going to go towards. And then finally, we want to think about all these choices with the audience in mind here, right? So we want to aim for an attainable goal. If we have a lot of grassroots donors, setting a $100,000 goal is going to intimidate folks. So thinking about, does our goal match our audience, and are they going to understand kind of why we're setting it? And especially on the impact side, is it going to resonate with what they care about most? All right, our second tip we're going to go into here is around what we're actually asking people to do, right? So once we have that theme and goal that, again, is both monetary in nature, but also tied to the impact that that's going to have if we actually achieve that goal, we then want to ask them to do one of three things, right? And one of those is about how they do it. We obviously want to ask them to donate. Any fundraising campaign, right, this is going to be a heart of it. We want to give suggested amounts. We want to take out a lot of the thinking during our fundraising campaign, right? So we want to make this as easy as possible for donors to participate. And those donation tiers are going to be really effective for a focused campaign to let people choose, hey, I want to give 25, 50, 100 bucks, whatever it might be. We often get asked kind of what those levels should be. We usually encourage folks to have at least one level that's kind of grassroots in nature. So $5, $10, $25, depending on the type of audience you have. One that's roughly kind of double that, right? So we start with 25, 50, we start with 10, maybe 20 or 25. And then one final one that would be a little higher, but at the beginning of our middle level donation. So usually that's $100 often, but for a more grassroots campaign, it might be as low as 50. For a little bit of a bigger campaign, it might be as high as 250. But I would keep that third option probably in that 50 to 250 range. Again, this is going to help eliminate a little bit of that paralysis of choice, right? How much should I give? And it just makes it very quick. Obviously, there'll be an option they can put in their own amount, but the more we make it easy for them, the more likely it is they're going to donate. The other thing we're going to ask them to do is to share, right? So campaigns work because as people donate, they then tell other people about it, right? And they bring other people in. So we want to make sure that we're giving donors really easy opportunities to share, for instance, on social media. We want to make sure the option to share is included in the thank you, right? And we want to make sure that folks are being thanked publicly as well. If not by name, at least routinely thanking donors on social media, again, driving home to other people that people are giving. And then finally, what we're asking folks to do here for both these things is to act with urgency. And again, as I said at the beginning, we're going to talk a lot about urgency today when we talk about campaigns, because of the fact that that's why campaigns work in large part. It's because it cuts through the noise, it cuts through the, I should give to them sometime, right? Or I'll give it end of year, and then people forget naturally, right? They say they're going to circle back to an email, they don't, right? Because their inbox is so full. If instead we're doing this really short campaign, you have to give today, you got to give one of these three amounts right now, it helps people make a yes or no decision. And some people will say no, right? They don't have the time that day. They're not in the mood to give. But we actually see more people say yes than not when forced with kind of that quick decision that they have to make. The third tip is around the identity we give to the donors participating. And what we mean by this is the fact that campaigns, and this is again going to get a little bit back to the theme of it, but we want folks to take on an identity by participating, right? That they are part of a group, part of a team doing something. And part of that is about who they are as a person, right? So one of the things donors are going to get out of this experience of giving during a campaign is some sense of kind of accomplishment and some sense of identity. So some of the different reasons we see people giving or identities we see donors wanting to take on that we can back up with the language that we're using in our appeal. There's 6 major ones we see people wanting these days. One of those is a change agent, right? So especially after these last couple of years, we see donors wanting to feel like they're making a difference, right? They're powerless to change all these big things that are happening in the world. So they want to make some type of difference themselves by making this donation right now. So we're going to talk about that change. We're going to talk about the fact that things can be different with their support, right? That we're making a difference close to home. And that change agent identity is going to drive them. Secondly, we see some folks just want that helper identity, right? They just want to support something to know they're doing something kind of quote unquote good, right? This is kind of the volunteer mindset. And they want that kind of helper, right? So we're gonna have a lot of kind of personal language there about lifting up your neighbors, etc. that's going to kind of tie into what they're looking for, what they're motivated by. This started back in kind of 2016, really, and then has carried on to today for sure, which is that folks are giving as a form of protest, right? Where they put their money and their resources is them claiming what they care about, right? They're fighting back against systems, they're fighting back against inequality, inequity, oppression, and they're doing that donation as an act of protest. So we want to give that identity that's going to resonate with our folks, and that's going to add a real edge to our campaign and edge to the language that we use there. This is less common in small nonprofits, but if we're doing a very kind of social media heavy campaign, this might be something that folks are paying attention to. But they're giving in order to gain some level of social status. So we want to think about how are we making sure we're gamifying this, and how are we making sure we're giving them options to get publicly recognized for their gift. That's going to be what motivates them. The fifth identity here, active citizen. These are folks that feel like they're doing their civic duty. They're civically participating by making a donation to you. So we're going to try to have language here about community. Community is really what's going to drive this group of donors. Then the final one, similar to helper, but a little different, is the caretaker. These are usually folks that either identify with the community, maybe come from the community, have lived locally there for a long time, but they want to support you to ultimately help people locally. So really local things are going to be what motivates them, and using local language. The fourth tip here around our campaigns, and again, so we have that really strong theme and goal, right? We want to raise $10,000, and we want to do so because it's going to let us do something in the community, and that's really what we're talking about. And we know who kind of our audience is and what they're motivated by. Now that we have them involved, how do we keep them excited, right? How do we get people to go from seeing the campaign, thinking that's a good thing, to actually being fired up and engaged with it? And we're going to do that in a couple of different ways here. One of those is we're going to talk about this on social media. Social media can be a great way to keep a campaign top of mind for folks, share ongoing success. It doesn't have to be the only way we're communicating. I think a lot of times these days folks think fundraising campaigns are only happening on social. And these fundraising campaigns can definitely be run across email, offline. Any of those options are still incredibly relevant depending on your donor audience. But social can be a great way to get the message out there, to share some stories related to the impact, and really kind of keep top of mind for folks to why this campaign matters so much. The second thing we can do here is shout out some donors during the campaign. So again, some donors might be comfortable with you actually naming them. Otherwise, we may just want to shout out a group of donors, right? Thank you if you donated already this morning. We've raised X amount of money. But the more we're thanking donors, we actually see that drives other people to give, right? It shows them, hey, people have already made gifts. I haven't yet. I should jump on this bandwagon, right? I should get involved as well, which is an option there. It also is going to show a little bit of the gratitude that they're going to get from us as they give, which again makes them more likely to donate. So those public shout outs can be a great thing to do, especially on social media. Lead gifts, we often get asked, how much should we secure for the campaign ahead of time, right? It's generally accepted and kind of understood. We don't want to start at zero on our campaign, right? So again, in that $10,000 campaign example I gave earlier, if we start at zero and say at the beginning of the day, hey, we got to raise $10,000 completely, and we've raised nothing so far, it really seems intimidating to donors, right? Doing the whole amount seems like a lot, even if the amount isn't really that much. But if we start with some level of progress, folks feel like they're jumping on, a train that's already moving, right? And that they can participate in something that's going to be successful. At the same time, we can't have secured so much of it publicly that it already feels like it's going to be done no matter what, even if they don't participate. So for that $10,000, if we start at zero, it's too intimidating. If we have 7 or 8K at the beginning of the day, people don't feel motivated to participate. So we typically see, depending on the goal, 20 to 40% is a good amount to aim for that is secured ahead of time. If you secure more than that, that's great, but you can use those things as matching gifts. You can use those things to gamify giving, or you can release those gifts later on in the day but only publicly claiming the 20 to 40% is what we see works best for folks there. It's enough to let them know progress has been made, but not so much to make them feel too comfortable with it. And then the fourth and final thing here is having some type of visual indication of progress. So it's one thing to talk about it, right? To write it in an email, write it on social media, but that visual thermometer or some type of visual indicator really has been shown to drive more donations and bigger donations. So it's important we have that visual indicator so folks have that sense of progress. The final tip that we'll cover today is around gamification. So making sure we're keeping supporters engaged by making it fun for them to participate. So the first tip here and the way we see this is around adding a peer-to-peer element. So we see some organizations slow and kind of hesitant to do this. I think a lot of times we think peer-to-peer, everything has to be really young donors, often on social media, kind of getting really grassroots gifts. And that's definitely one way it can look, but that's not how it has to look. Peer-to-peer can be done offline, can be done over email, can be done for significant gifts, and can be done by any donor. This really is what it is at the heart of it is an influence campaign, right? We're asking folks who currently support us and like us to ask their networks who don't know us to give, right? We often see folks kind of run some level of friendly competition between peer-to-peer leaders. When thinking about who those leaders should be, aim for folks who aren't necessarily your biggest donors, but are loyal, who have been giving for a long time, and who are consistent supporters. Those are going to be folks who are really strong peer-to-peer leaders in many cases. We're going to try to use peer-to-peer to add a little fun, a little personalization, and again, that personal touch, right? They're going to be reaching out to their network, so we're going to give them some templates and some tools. We're going to encourage them to also put their own kind of tone and spirit into it to really tap into their networks. The second thing here we can do is matching. So we do see during campaigns, this is always true that matching gifts help, but during campaigns specifically, matching gifts are incredibly helpful in driving donor behavior and driving gifts. So we often see folks have a matching gift that will either double or triple the gift amount, right? So you give 20 bucks, they'll count as 40, right? We see this is often very motivating for donors, especially smaller dollar donors. So folks that are, only given 10 bucks, now it's 20, only given 20, now it's 40. They know, especially younger donors, are engaged enough in the community to know that smaller amount is only going to make so much difference. So knowing that their dollar is going to go a little bit farther makes it a better investment for them, and often is going to be a motivator for them to give. And then the final piece here is around prizes, right? So sometimes it can be for donors, right? If you donate today, we're going to do a drawing, and there's this prize available, and that's somewhat motivating for folks. But we see more motivating is actually a prize that will go to the organization, right? So setting it up that hey, if we raise $1,000 this hour, or if we get 100 people to donate this hour, we have a donor who's going to give an extra $5,000 to the organization, right? An extra $1,000 to the organization. People that want to help you unlock that prize, right? They see that as a challenge, a competition, a reward, right? That they can help you get. So that's a great way to set things up, especially if we make it around donor participation and not the amount of money, right? So if we get 100 donors in the next 2 hours, instead of if we raise $5,000, because people individually can't necessarily help you raise that 5K in a significant way, but they could post on social, call 5 friends, right? Text somebody. So making it about the people participation often is a good way to get folks engaged there. So a couple takeaways, then we'll pause for questions from folks. We really want to choose that theme early on, right? So we should start with that theme and goal, right? So again, we want a monetary goal that specifically we're working towards, and then a real life thing we're going to do with that money. It doesn't have to tie us to this. This still can be for general operating support, but we do want people to understand kind of, at least theoretically, right, where that funding is going to go and what types of things we're going to be able to do with it. One question we got early on here was our type of work doesn't have a lot of tangible items, like buying a truck, buying meals or something. What can we do for the real life goal aspect of that campaign? So it doesn't have to be something tangible. It could be, this is going to allow us to provide a couple weeks, instructions for our students, right? A couple weeks of therapy for our clients, right? Whatever it might be. So it could definitely be just about the impact of your work in a certain time. Doesn't have to be tied to a tangible item. The third thing here, we want to decide what those giving tiers are going to be, so folks know what levels to give at. I want to think about how long is the campaign going to be open, and if it is going to be longer, what times are we going to create urgency, right? So if we have a month-long campaign, we're not going to be able to keep people focused on it every day during that month. So what are going to be our really urgent touch points during that campaign? How are we going to keep progress top of mind, right? The visual thermometer, shout outs on social media, things like that. And then finally, how are we going to gamify it? We want to add something fun or competition to drive some behavior here. Again, matching gifts are going to work great here. Prizes to unlock are going to work great here. And peer-to-peer, which is a trend we've seen during the pandemic, really escalate how successful peer-to-peer has been. Folks, are looking for that personal touch, personal connection, and peer-to-peer allows that for us. So with that, I'll go ahead and pause and take any questions folks have before we wrap up today. Someone asked if social media always needs to be part of a successful campaign. No, it doesn't have to. You could definitely do a campaign over email, right? We definitely see organizations do that. I would encourage you, if you have social media that you use for your organization, that you're at least talking about the campaign on there. Again, we don't see social media always as a great fundraising platform, but it's a great awareness raising platform. It's a great engagement platform. It's a great stewardship and thinking platform. So using it for those things, at least, even if we're not directly fundraising on it, can be a good option. Someone asked if there's a good time of year if you're running kind of an independent campaign. Yeah, the biggest thing is looking at your calendar and making sure it's not too crowded, right? So we know end of year Giving Tuesday time is kind of already set aside. So we're probably looking, if we're running our own campaign, to either be running it in the spring or summer, or maybe very early fall. And usually we try to tie it to something, right? So either something programmatic or seasonal, some type of awareness month or holiday, or some type of organizational, our founding date, right? Something like that. But having a reason for it can be great, especially if that can factor into the theme. Someone said, how do we set a realistic goal? What's a realistic goal for a first-time campaign? Totally depends on your donor base. There's not kind of a set number, I would say there, but you can build out kind of a donor pyramid. So what that would be is just looking at some different giving levels, right? Excuse me. How many donors do you think you're going to get at each one of those levels? We think we can get 2 $500 gifts, and we think we can get a dozen $100 gifts, et cetera, et cetera. Building that out, thinking about that, and using that to help set a realistic goal. It's great to have a stretch goal, but we do want to make sure that goal is something that we can at least come reasonably close to, so the donors see some progress being made there. Oh, this is a great question. It's about retention of campaign and peer-to-peer donors, that they are able to get donors successfully during the campaign, but struggle sometimes to keep them long terms afterwards. That's a great point. We recommend a three-point kind of thank you for campaign donors. So what those 3 levels are is 1, thank you right away for the gift. 1, thank you at the end of the campaign, celebrating kind of the campaign overall. And 1, a few weeks later, thanking them again and showing them some impact. That's not going to keep everybody, but that's what we see as kind of most effective for stewardship there. All right, great. I'm not seeing any other questions, so we're going to wrap up a couple minutes early. But thank you all for joining. We'll send out the slides and recording shortly afterwards. Have a good one.